Now, let's look at how green coatings and casement can be of great benefit to people, buildings, and the environment when applied to roofing. Also, how that is a huge contribution to sustainable buildings, and how roof restoration is the superior approach to an old roof as opposed to removal and replacement. Roofing is the largest protective exterior surface of every building. It's the number one surface that defends buildings, the people in them, and their contents. It is the one that needs to deflect all kinds of harsh weather and harmful ultraviolet rays. It also has the most environmental impact and needs greater understanding of how to properly manage and deal with them, especially when those roofs also contain hazardous and toxic materials that over time get continually released into the fragile environment. A pro-planet green coatings encasement system based on a case-by-case analysis can include not only sealing the roof, but filling holes, bridging gaps, addressing rust and corrosion, adding structural reinforcement to weak spots while wind and weatherproofing those surfaces and stopping the environmental harmful release of toxic and hazardous materials. Also, turning roofs solar reflective, keeping those surfaces cooler, saving energy and money while contributing to people's overall well-being. In addition, how those same roofs, if handled wrong, can have a negative impact on the environment at the perceived end of their life cycle and can in fact be simply restored and often turned into a surface that is better than new. This process can take the old obsolete roof and use what was good about it, which many times is the structural strength and R value, insulation qualities, and seal everything in combining all the positive qualities of the old obsolete roof to make a stronger, sustainable, renewable roof. Also using that same coating to seal in toxic material while turning the roof environmentally green. Additionally, stopping the unwanted and harmful generation, transportation, and storage of damaging CO2 emitting waste. I'll be covering all these topics once and again, pointing to real life scenarios where specific green coatings and casement have proved beneficial, standing the test of time. In subsequent sections, we'll be highlighting challenges while visiting an actual job site that has most of these important issues and how they are simply addressed with proven green coatings and casement systems using a combined handful of extensively tested products. Existing roofing can have many different and independent issues that can all be properly dealt with at the same time by designing and installing the right one green coating encasement system. A roof is the most important part of a building structure and the first line of defense. It is the single most significant piece of the structure that takes the most abuse and needs to have the greatest strength for protecting that building and its contents against potential damaging from strong weather events. The standard practice has been at the end of a roof's typical life cycle, it is removed and replaced, which generates tremendous amounts of waste. The life cycle is often determined by those that make the most from the expensive removal and replacement process and should be looked at with different eyes. Ones that understand the whole picture, including the important environmental aspects of a roof tear-off and replacement. Let's look at some of the main environmental impacts from removal and replacement of this essential and often misunderstood building component. As I've studied the issues of what building components are the main culprits of polluting our environment of both soil and water, along with generating the most waste, I found that roofing to be the leading offender. This also includes air pollution if the roofing contains asbestos. Asbestos is a large content of many roofs and all surfaces worldwide, and its microscopic fibers are continually released into the environment as it breaks down over time. As certain roofing materials disintegrate, breaking down over time, they can release many types of toxic material into the environment. Documentation shows air, soil, and groundwater and standing water contamination. Direct and indirect contamination of the environment is what scientific studies prove is happening with much of the disintegrating roofing. The direct contamination is the breakdown of roofing combined with rain runoff, which is a culprit of ground and standing water contamination. This is especially true with coal tar-based asphalt roofing materials. Indirect contamination and other offensive factors of most roofing is that it is usually and utterly unnecessarily removed and replaced at the end of its service lifespan. This undesirable removal and pointless waste generation causes a tremendous amount of unwanted scrap. All this unnecessary waste needs to be transported, disposed of, and stored in a landfill. Landfills that are already limited on space and often overflowing. As this offensive waste slowly continues to decompose, it adds more pollution into the environment and harmful CO2 emissions into the atmosphere. This generation of waste becomes even more complicated when the waste contains asbestos. Proper disposal requires it to be transported in special trucks and stored in hazardous material dumps. But what happens when there are no local hazardous material dumps? An example of this was the case when I was working and living on the Japanese island of Okinawa, where hazardous asbestos was found and removed. Okinawa had none of the dumps required to accept and store the toxic material, so it had to be shipped off island. This unexpectedly skyrocketed the project cost and added to the complications already associated with asbestos removal and replacement. Some estimates have put removed roofing debris at as much as 20% of overall building waste in landfills. That's way too much reoccurring waste generated from only one building component. There is a better and much more progressive way to go, and that is by restoring and rejuvenating old and worn out roofing as well as other building surfaces. Let's go ahead now and look at another tremendous, often misunderstood environmental issue with roofs, and that is the color of that surface and how it can be simply turned into a solar reflective, cool surface, being beneficial on so many levels. Dark colors attract and pull down heat, and in turn increase a building surface temperature. On roofs specifically, that added heat then transfers into the building, causing the inside of that structure to be hotter than if the outside structure was a light, solar reflective color, producing a cooler surface. That unnecessary pulling down of heat causes two major environmental effects. First, triggering the surrounding area to rise in temperature, also known as the urban heat island effect. The other fact is that the inside of the building is made hotter. It produces higher energy demands to cool it down. And where people can't afford air conditioning or other means to cool their interior their overall health and well-being can be affected. In extremely hot areas or where temperatures rise in summer months, this added heat can bring about serious distress on occupants and in the worst case, putting people at risk of death, especially elderly or individuals with pre-existing conditions. So let's now talk about how all these negative situations can be avoided. The answer is easy: a simple, long-term renewable restoration system. By using the right industrial coatings, anyone can rejuvenate and improve these worn-out surfaces. Most roofing challenges can be addressed with the right green coatings and casement system, instantly stopping leaks and the release of harmful, offensive materials into that fragile environment. But as with all things, roofing should be dealt with on a case-by-case basis when choosing the system and products for that design. All these system designs tackle many issues, and coming up with the right plan can entail incorporating a few associated products. These connected products can add things like structural strength or can be used to build up low spots causing ponding water. They can bridge gaps, fill holes, and address other issues such as rust and corrosion, along with turning dark colors into light solar reflective ones. These are just some of the items that can be checked and addressed depending on the project needs. As times change, so does understanding how to best deal with evolving situations. What follows are some case histories of actual projects that had multiple issues all solved with the right green coating and casement system. Keep in mind that, as mentioned in this and other segments, that the system's designs also need to include project concerns that need to be addressed, such as building downtime, relocation fees for personnel, contents, production income loss, generation, transportation, and storage of waste. These costs and concerns that need to be considered when choosing the right green coating encasement system. Always remembering that any choices can affect other aspects of a project. Many of these are addressed in the following case histories.